The morning America didn't notice. On a quiet April morning in 1947, Washington, D.C. woke up like it always did. Government clerks lined up for coffee. Senators skimmed newspapers. A thin spring sun crept over marble buildings that had survived one world war and were bracing for something unnamed. There were no sirens, no explosions, no crowds in the streets, nothing that felt like history being made. Yet inside a modest room not far from the White House, a decision was being finalized that would silently reshape the United States for the next 75 years. Most Americans never noticed that morning. They were not supposed to. The country had just won the largest war in human history. Nazi Germany was defeated. Japan had surrendered. The United States stood richer, stronger, and more powerful than any nation had ever been. Factories were humming, soldiers were coming home, babies were being born in numbers never seen before. The war was over, or so it seemed. Behind closed doors, a very different conclusion had been reached. The war, the men in that room believed, had not ended at all. It had simply changed its form, and America was dangerously unprepared. During World War II, the United States had done something it had never done before. It had built a temporary intelligence system. The Office of Strategic Services, known as the OSS, was created in 1942. It was improvised, messy, and often chaotic. Lawyers worked beside spies. Professors planned sabotage. Bankers learned how to forge documents. It was not elegant, but it worked. OSS agents ran resistance networks in occupied Europe. They gathered intelligence behind enemy lines. They conducted psychological warfare and covert operations that could never appear in official military reports. But from the beginning, the OSS was meant to be temporary. America did not like secret organizations. The Founding Fathers had warned against standing armies and unchecked power. Intelligence work felt too
The National Security Act of 1947 was introduced quietly. It did not sound dramatic. Its language was technical, bureaucratic, almost boring. It reorganized military departments. It created the Department of Defense. It established the National Security Council. Buried inside it was a provision that changed everything: the creation of the Central Intelligence Agency. Not a military organization, not a law enforcement agency, something entirely new. Its mission was intentionally vague: to correlate and evaluate intelligence, to perform services of common concern, to protect national security. What those words would come to mean was left deliberately undefined. On July 26, 1947, President Truman signed the act into law. America had just created the most powerful intelligence agency in its history. Almost no one noticed. At first, the CIA was small, underfunded, uncertain of its role. It had no tradition, no clear boundaries, and no public identity. But it inherited something far more important than resources. It inherited people. Former OSS officers returned quietly. Analysts who had tracked enemy movements now tracked ideologies. Saboteurs became planners. Propaganda experts became psychological strategists. They carried with them wartime lessons that would never appear in public speeches. They knew that democracy, left undefended, could be manipulated. They knew that truth could be overwhelmed by repetition. They knew that fear traveled faster than facts. And they knew that in the coming struggle, losing a country did not require invasion. It only required influence. The first battlefield was not Europe. It was Greece. In 1947, Greece was collapsing into civil war. Communist insurgents, backed indirectly by the Soviet bloc, were challenging the government. Britain, exhausted by war, could no longer afford to intervene. If Greece fell, policymakers feared, Turkey would follow, then the Middle East, then access to oil, trade routes, and strategic seas. The CIA was barely operational, but it was already being asked to help shape outcomes. Money was funneled, political actors were supported, information campaigns were quietly launched. The intervention worked. Greece did not become a communist state. In Washington,
A lesson crystallized. Covert action was effective.